everyone, it's Tony back again with another video, and today I'm going to talk about The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now I'm going to tell you three things I liked about the book, three things I didn't like if anything, and my top three favorite characters. Now before I go into reading you a bit about the plot as I normally do, I want to preface this by saying I thought that The Cruel Prince was going to be very much like the Tyrell trilogy by Amanda Hockin, or like Merry Gentry by Laura K. Hamilton, which is a lot more adult. That just sits firmly in the adult fiction sphere. But it wasn't. It was a little bit like that because it goes into the world of fairy, but it was so much more. But before I get into this review, let me read you a little bit about the plot and then we'll get right into it. So here we go. Of course I want to be like them. They're beautiful as blades forged in some divine fire. They will live forever. And Cardan is even more beautiful than the rest of them. I hate him more than all the others. I hate him so much that sometimes when I look at him, I can hardly breathe. Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered, and she and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the treacherous High Court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to belong there despite her mortality. But many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Cardan, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. To win a place at court, she must defy him and face the consequences. As Jude becomes more deeply embroiled in palace intrigues and deceptions, she discovers her own capacity for trickery and bloodshed. But as betrayal threatens to drown the court of fairy in violence, Jude will need to risk her life in a dangerous alliance to save her sisters and fairy itself. Now, I really enjoyed this book. I started reading this book on a Wednesday and was done by Thursday night. It just really surprised me. So basically, the book starts off really intensely. So Madoc, who is a general in the fairy court, is hunting down his estranged wife who has run away with his firstborn child. And in his hunt, he tracks her down to the human world, where he finds that she has settled down with a human and has born 2 other children. And in his rage, he ends up murdering his estranged wife and her human spouse, and steals away his daughter, his biological daughter, and the 2 human children that she has had. So I feel like that's a bit of a spoiler, but literally that is like the first couple of pages in the book. So that is so intense. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe like the first chapter starts like that. It was so intense, it was so crazy that it just compelled me to continue reading, and I could not put this book down. So what you end up going through is an adventure that sees you track the lives of the 3 girls when they're living in fairy and how they navigate this environment. Some of them have chosen to accept their new life in fairy, whilst others are like, nope, I want no parts of it. And then there's also like some weird, twisted kind of Stockholm syndrome scenario going on, where there is literally like a love-hate relationship with Madoc, the general that has caused them so much grief and strife, but has yet taken them in and introduced them to this world of magic and wonder and spectacle that is so different from their human lives. And this particular book, The Cruel Prince, is the first of a trilogy of the Folk of Air. And this book goes through Jude's life and how she navigates fairy and the political mechanics in that land, basically, and how she wants to, despite being human and considered less than, how she wants to really become engrossed in this world and become an integral part of this world, and basically ends up becoming a hero within this world. There's also like a love I want to say triangle, but it's more like a love square that goes on between the main character Jude, a character called Locke, who is a fairy that is described as having the characteristics of a fox. So he's cunning and he's a bit of a trickster. And he's also very charming, but you don't know whether he's good or bad, and you don't know whether you're supposed to like him or not like him. So he was very, very complicated in that sense. And then also Prince Carden himself, who is the cruel prince. He's not the only cruel prince, but he's the main one that we focus on in this book. And it basically kind of gives you a bit of a description as to why Carden is the way he is. What I loved about this book, as per usual, I like a good, strong female protagonist in Jude. She was very funny, and the story was told in first person from her perspective. So that was really, really well done. This book was just a roller coaster. It was just like a massive wave that went up and up and up and up and hit a crescendo and then crashed spectacularly at the end. I really, really, really enjoy it. I don't want to give any more spoilers than I've already given, but the fact that I read this book in a day and a half kind of speaks for itself. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting it to be like the Merry Gentry series from Laurell K. Hamilton, even though that's very much very adult. That really goes into the world of fairy, and because it was a YA book, I thought it would also be like the Tyrell trilogy, Torn and Ascend, by Amanda Hockin, which I didn't really enjoy as much, but it was an easy read. But I did really enjoy the Merry Gentry series until it got a bit silly, like after about 4 books in, and I just thought, okay. I did commit, but you know, after the first 4 books, it was kind of like, okay, that's fine. But this one did not disappoint. Who are my favorite characters? As usual, I really, really enjoyed Jude. I thought she was strong. She was 17 and it was full of teenage angst. She was still a child, but not quite an adult, but really wanted to do adult things in an adult world. So I really enjoyed her character. I really liked her sister Vivian, although I wouldn't say she was one of my favorites, but I really liked her character. I thought that it would be interesting if the second or third book in the series kind of follows Vivian's life and gives us a bit more insight into who Vivian is, rather than, you know, just having it from Jude's perspective. I thought that each of the characters were rich enough that you could potentially have a book from each character's perspective. I mean, that's how well developed they were. I also really enjoyed Locke. I thought he was really cunning. As per usual, I liked the darkness in him. I would like to hear a bit more about his story, why he is the way he is. We kind of hear about his parents and his family dynamics or lack thereof it. So he was very interesting. Prince Carden, I warmed to in the end. I kind of felt his character was a bit predictable, but I still liked him. But he wasn't my top favorite. I think I really, really liked Maddox. Now that is a dark, twisted character, and I would like to hear a lot more about Maddox's story, how Maddox became the way he is, what made him go from being a bloodthirsty warlord into the guy that fell in love with Jude's mother, into a politically ambitious rogue, so to speak, father of 4. Do you know what I mean? He was such a complicated character. You know, why he married his wife Oriana, that kind of thing. I just would like to hear a lot more about Maddox's life. So he was my second favorite character. And yeah, so my top 3 characters were like Jude, Maddox, and Locke. I really like those 3 characters. What didn't I like about this book? The only thing that I didn't like about this book is that, like I said, it was like a wave that, you know, rose and rose and rose and crested and then crescendoed. I kind of felt like the end of this book was a little bit rushed, if I'm honest. The last 2 chapters, I felt like there was so much that was going on. It literally did feel like I was on a hamster wheel trying to tie together all these loose threads, so to speak. So I kind of felt like, you know, rather than rushing the end the way it was rushed, because we already know that there is a book 2 and a book 3, it could have been left off at a cliffhanger and then picked up in the next book, which I know that a lot of people will be like, you know, why would you want that? I want to know what happened. I want it to end. And maybe the next books are going to be like what I said, kind of following the story from somebody else's perspective. So maybe that's why it was written in the kind of way that it was written. I don't know. I just kind of felt it was a bit rushed. And that's the only thing that I didn't really like about the book. Everything else was fantastically well done. I would give this book a 4.2 because it was interesting. It was a page turner. The characters were richly developed. It took me on a roller coaster of emotions, and the book veered off in directions that I didn't expect. Like I said, I really thought that this was a predictable story. I thought I knew where it was going, having read other books in the YA fantasy sphere that center around the world of fairy. So I really thought I knew where it was going, but it surprised me because, you know, what I thought was going to happen oftentimes did happen, but to other characters. So for that reason, I would give it a 4.2. I can't give it any more because I didn't read it in a flat out day, but it was still pretty good. And I think that my review is pretty spot on because I did check before doing this video. I checked Goodreads rating of it, and it was exactly the same, 4.2. I couldn't believe it. I hope that this review has given you enough to whet your appetite and has inspired you to pick up this book. As the first book that I have read in my Christmas reads, it was an excellent choice, and I look forward to reading more from Holly Black, especially on the Folk of Air trilogy. So please like, share and subscribe, and until next time, bye.